Hi everyone, and I'm really delighted and honoured to be part of Creative Carbon's 2023 Green Tease series and talking about the right tree and the right place today. My name is Dr. Cathy Fitzgerald. I'm an ecological artist, educator and researcher living in County Carlow in Ireland, and I'm founder director of Haumea Ecoversity, an online ecoliteracy platform for mid-career and established creative and cultural professionals, and I'm a research fellow in art and ecology at the Burren College of Art in County Clare. Before I start, I'd like to talk about my Whakapapa, honouring my ecological genealogy. As you can probably tell, I am a New Zealander. I've been living in Ireland, the home of my ancestors, for the last 25 years, but I was born in New Zealand. And it's customary for all adult educators, and when you speak in public, and it's a gift from the Maori and Pacifica people, to talk about our ecological heritage. And we've got them to thank that and consider that they already inhabit an ecological worldview. So I'd like to send greetings and gratitude, share my story, my pepeha, about my interdependence with the wider community of life. And I'd like to thank the forests, the rivers, my family and my ancestors for the life that they have gifted me. I've been asked to talk today as I'm also on the Creative Carbon's Library of Creative Sustainability with my ongoing project, The Hollywood Forest Story, which takes place outside my front door in a little 2-acre woodland that is becoming the little wood that could. Since 2008, I've been exploring an ecological art practice and how to transform a tiny 2-acre monoculture conifer plantation to become a permanent, beautiful, birdsong-filled, resilient and productive forest using new to island, close to nature, continuous cover forestry practices. I want to start today by saying there is something very unwise about monoculture clearfell forestry, whether it is practiced in Ireland, Scotland, Aotearoa, New Zealand or elsewhere. A month ago, my home area of Hawke's Bay and the adjoining Tarafiti area was devastated by New Zealand's worst ever catastrophe. Cyclone Gabrielle was supercharged by climate breakdown, and its torrential rains and winds further highlighted, and not for the first time, shortcomings of plantation clearfell forestry on hillsides in New Zealand. The heavy rains washed waste wood from the plantations left after clear felling, which is called slash, and the rain pushed this discarded wood down to create apocalyptic rivers of timbers, breaking bridges, ruining farms and agricultural land, destroying buildings and homes, destroying livelihoods and communities. It's much, much more than the wrong tree and the wrong place. It's the wrong forestry practice in the wrong places. Sadly, every storm in this area repeats this pattern of destruction. As a heartbroken local Maori woman interviewed recently said, repeating the same activity and expecting a change is a definition for insanity, isn't it? There is no wisdom with this type of forestry practice, and particularly now when the world is facing extreme weather events. Another word for the atrocities of the Anthropocene is the Plantationocene, and this helps us put colonialism, capitalism, and enduring racial hierarchies into the picture of the history of plantations. You can find more about these ideas from leading scholars and artists at edgeeffects.net. Decades of research confirm short rotation monoculture tree plantations grossly limits wildlife and river life. Soil fertility is so reduced that future monocultures will be unprofitable. And crucially, monoculture forestry practices conducted at scale prevents communities from understanding what keeps forests healthy. And this is vital. All of us rely on thriving forests for the air we breathe, for their multiple environmental, social and economic benefits. Intuitively, we all know this. It's why unwise forest practices evoke some of the strongest emotions from the public. Another grim IPCC report last week insists again that we address the ecological imperative at scale. We must quickly move from just thinking about the right tree and the right place and appreciate that we need to learn and adopt integrated permanent forestry practices urgently for broader environmental and social benefit. So our future forestry practices will always return more for enduring personal, collective, planetary and intergenerational well-being. However, moving from a monoculture mindset to envision enduring ecological forestry practices, and also this is the same in the art education area, is part of the immense cultural shift the dominant culture faces. Education for equitable, just and sustainable living is foremost, and 2 decades' work is beginning to promote holistic sustainability education globally to overcome siloed, disciplinary 19th century Enlightenment models. It means embracing broader life-promoting intrinsic values. This is why the Peoples and the twice-endorsed UNESCO Earth Charter, which Maori and other Indigenous peoples contributed to 2 decades ago, is foundational in education for sustainability. It fosters an integrated ecological perspective so citizens act for broader systemic change. Here we have much to learn from Indigenous peoples' cultural wisdom when they successfully tend 85% of Earth's remaining biodiverse regions. This should all make us pause and even stop the forestry practices we are so accustomed to. Our future forestry actions and all that we do must prioritise a worldview where thriving of all species for the long term is the norm. Our future will have an ancient heart. An example and a story of an ecological forest culture developing in Ireland is what I want to touch on today, which is healing as a post-colonial country with the lowest forest cover in Europe. Around 1% of forests were remaining in 1900. It's now up to 10% forest cover, and Ireland is aiming for 30 to 40% forest cover for 2030. I'd like to suggest that NGOs have been crucial as creative hotbeds to support people to explore, practice and gain expertise in alternative, more ecological permanent forestry practices. In the late 1980s in Ireland, Jan Alexander, an Australian who's now lived in Ireland several decades, successfully lobbied with members of the public that the Irish government introduce incentives for significant native tree planting, which have broader and enduring ecological and social values. And she was very successful. There are now greater percentages of native Irish trees being planted across Ireland, and my own work has been really inspired by her efforts. And it fits in with that well-known quote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." But Jan went on to say, after this significant, I suppose, appreciation of native trees and their importance to Ireland, to say it's not enough. We need to know how to practice permanent forestry into the future so that we keep hold of these native trees. So she joined another NGO called Pro Silver Ireland, and Pro Silver Ireland is one of over 25 countries which have an organisation which is for forests, for permanent continuous cover forestry. And Ireland, over the last 23 years, has invited international European pro-silver foresters twice a year for in-the-wood discussions with landowners, with people wanting to transition to their plantations into permanent continuous cover forests. And the Pro-Silver Ireland membership is made up of small and large landowners, forest owners, forestry consultants, ecologists, timber harvesters, and they are a dedicated small bunch that have been leading this conversation over 2 decades. There is a UK group called the Continuous Cover Forestry Group, which is also part of Pro-Silver. With my increasing confidence in ecoliteracy in continuous cover forestry, I unexpectedly found myself putting forward that this be the key point for the Irish Green Party's forest policy in 2023, and it continues to be the main point in 2023. I've watched with growing pride and I suppose personal interest in other members of of the Pro Silver Island Committee being advisors for a new vision for forestry in Ireland's Parliament. And this week, continuous cover forestry is now being mainstreamed in the new Irish Forest Programme going forward. This is really, really significant. No longer will landowners be locked into planting and replanting monoculture Sitka spruce plantations. I'm really pleased to be talking at this particular week in such a significant point where at the end of this year it's hoped that there'll be financial payments for people to transition towards continuous cover forestry. Final thoughts. I know this is a really short overview. I'm continuing to dream of wiser ways for ever more beautiful and birdsong-filled forests. Last November, a Maori forester with Irish heritage reached out to me, impressed with Pro Silver International and the mana of my creative storytelling efforts to advance news of permanent forestry. She and others from New Zealand wanted to visit and see Europe's great continuous cover forests, like those in Slovenia, where clear felling hasn't been practiced for 70 years. I wanted her to come to Ireland, as like New Zealand, we share a recent history and trauma of colonial forestry. But since the cyclone, I've sent my best wishes to this forester in New Zealand, knowing she must be heartbroken, devastated for her iwi, her local tribal people, and working hard to steer forestry in a new direction. I am moved by reports to retire plantations and plant native trees, and this is conversations that are arising since the cyclone. And so I'd like to end this talk and send greetings and best wishes from Hollywood Forest to far-sighted New Zealand foresters and foresters everywhere, and inspirational Maori elders who are holding the space in Aotearoa, New Zealand and elsewhere for wiser forestry and the People's Earth Charter. Thank you so much for listening for my ideas from Hollywood Forest Story, still proudly Ireland's smallest continuous cover forest. You can please do feel welcome to send me comments or queries, and I have two websites, one for the ongoing Hollywood Forest Story and also for Haumea Ecoversity. Thank you for listening, everyone.